from this morning, or rather GitHub level keynote. This is going to be a little bit more casual. You're going to get a chance to hear me talk basically like in my meetings. So I'm super excited to talk about planning with GitHub projects. In this chat, I'm going to be showing you a bunch of like new things, but really I want to talk a little bit more about how we as the projects team really use projects. So when I started on the projects team earlier this year, it's been a very exciting year for me, my manager Mario was talking to me about the ethos that they were trying to build with this project. You might remember Mario from last year. He had the fun like pew, pew, pew lasers in the keynote. Definitely go watch that if you haven't. And they told me that they really look towards origami for inspiration. If you think about a sheet of paper, it's super adaptable. You can fold it, you can bend it, you can write on it, you can color on it. You can really make it do whatever you need to fit your needs. And that's what we wanted projects to be. But if you're like me and someone hands you a piece of paper and they say, make this an awesome thing, go, you probably end up with deer in headlights sort of face. You're like, okay, there's so much flexibility here. You've given me no constraints. I can do pretty much anything, so what do I do? And I hear this over and over and over again in the customer calls that I have with all of you. I hear the refrain, when you can make anything, where do you start? You want your project to be the best it could possibly be, the most efficient, the best at giving all the details that your team needs. And that really creates a sense of analysis paralysis, which I certainly identify with. So for the rest of this session, it's going to be a little less whiz-bang, here's all our fun features. And I'm really going to try and pull back the curtain on how my team, GitHub Projects, actually uses projects in our day-to-day. So this will be a bit more explanation of sort of like process, but don't worry, we're going to go into the cool features along the way as well. So take this as just a starting point. This can be inspiration for your own projects, for your teams, but be sure to twist it, to fold it, to adapt it to your needs. So to start, we're going to do a little structural overview, a little wayfinding, one might say. And this is the overview for our team. Each one of these items represents a different project board in our organization. I'm going to talk about these super briefly here just to orient you for the rest of the talk, but we're going to go really deep into each of these, how they're created and how we configure them, how we think about creating them. So first we have our opportunities backlog. This is effectively all the things we could do in the project space. It's got things like quality of life improvements, all the way to multi-epic, multi-month ideas like roadmap, which we announced this morning. Once we decide that one of these opportunities or pitches, as we call them, is actually something we're going to start working on, we create an item that lives in the program overview board. And I'll get into that one. That is basically the one-stop shop for anyone who wants to know what our team is working on and is really centered around sort of the lead experience, right? My manager, Mario, comes to me and says, Allison, how are we doing for Universe? I just point him towards the program overview. And now, if you think about a team of this size, we've got several PMs, several engineering squads, honestly, even one higher level up, we're talking on the level of dozens. You can't have all those issues in one place. So each one of those sort of features gets its own project board that is centered around the team that's working on it so that they can really focus in on the items that matter to them. And for any items in the feature overview, such as documentation support or maybe the marketing or social media campaign, we can have those issues live simultaneously in our feature overview so that me as the PM can look at it quickly, but also those issues can live in accessory team projects as well, so that the marketing plan lives in one issue, but that issue resides in both the feature overview project as well as marketing's main sort of their program overview, right? Okay, this is, I think a pretty cool graph. I made it myself, but I'll be here all week. The jokes don't stop, I promise. But let's really sort of peel that first layer back and dig into one of these projects. So for each of these projects, it really starts with these two main questions we ask ourselves when we're creating them. Who's looking at this project? Who's the customer? And what are the questions they have? And out of that, your project just kind of falls into place, to be honest. So if we think about something like the opportunities backlog, which this is a real live screenshot of our opportunities. So if you're passionate about any of these things, come talk to me and I can upvote it on our side. The users looking at this is anyone interested in the product, right? It's me, it's my engineering managers, it's my VPs, it's the documentation team that wants a specific feature request, and they want to make sure it's here. And we ask questions like, which of our engineering teams is best suited to tackle this problem if it were to be upgraded to actually be worked on? What high-level goal does this achieve so that we can see sort of, if we're really focusing on our super fans, what's the set of work we can do? Where in the process is it? Is someone just drafting an idea? Have they pitched it? Have we decided to take it? Is it under review? Do we need more feedback? So each of these questions, as you can see, either ends up being a view. So in this case, I have a view that is scoped to my project's issues. We've got a view that's scoped to the project's issues. And these custom fields, right? So projects is a custom field. Which team is best suited to work on this? The projects team. 10D28 is what sort of initiative does this roll up to? You'll notice we also have fundamentals there. And then status ends up being the overarching sort of grouping for this view. And as you can see, we've got ones like what's ready or drafted, what are the fundamental pitches. Each of these questions that we ask ends up being its own view or custom field. And that's the easiest place to start, in my opinion, if you're feeling overwhelmed by the flexibility of our projects. So once a pitch is accepted and we start working on it, we look at the program overview. And here, our user is very different, right? The user is my manager. It's Thomas who wants to see what we're working on. It is me as a product manager for my team trying to understand the scope of what everyone else is doing right now. And this is really the heart of our planning as a team. This is what we look at day in, day out as the leaders of this team. And so the answers that we're looking for are things like, what's in progress? What's at risk? Who do I turn to if I have questions about this body of work? And what's happening next? And so, as a sneak peek, and to prove that it's actually real, this is our planning and tracking roadmap. We use this every single day on our team. You can see right here, we're very excited, line 150, the first milestone for roadmap is done. We've got our hierarchy private beta here. And if we remember those questions I was asking, I know there's some fun stuff here. I think I see some faces here of like, ooh, limits, right? Let's talk about that. So if we think about each of those questions, we have things like the trending tab. Is it at risk? Is it done? Are we on track? And this is a single select field because who wants their team to come up with their own trending? It's like, we're almost done, but not quite, right? You want a single select because these are discrete values. And as you see here, we have tracks letting us know sort of the subtask progress at a glance. And for those of you who have been following along with projects since our public beta last year, you'll know how important change logs are to us. We try and release those every 2 to 3 weeks to continually keep you up to date. And so we have another single select one of like, when's the target change log for this item? So that we can see, if we go, I'm actually not going to click on change logs because I don't remember what's in there. But trust me, it's grouped by all the change logs. And let me tell you, there's some fun stuff coming. But, and also, we are using roadmap. So we are starting to use this ourselves. And we are actually seeing how across squads, The armadillos are working on these two concurrently. They're going to be working on roadmap for a bit. Very excited to ship those features out for you. Now, got my notes because I got to duplicate my screen. So remember also that like, as you continue working, if you're like me, new questions come up, right? And so it's very easy to take one of these views and alter it to whatever new question comes to mind. So for example, one question I'm really wondering about is what are the sets of items that are coming specifically for projects that have an engineering team assigned to them? And that's super easy to do from this next and later one. This is the whole scope of the GitHub issues family. And I can easily just say, cool, I want the project ones. And if we don't have an engineering team assigned to it, or engineering product and design team assigned to it, I'm just not worried about it. So I'm actually going to go ahead and use my filter bar to remove that column. And for those with eagle eyes, you'll notice that we no longer have that column here, which is a brand new feature from about 4 to 6 weeks ago. So if you actually include a subtraction in the filter, that gets rid of one of those columns, will automatically hide it from your view so that you're not cluttering it up. We're all about getting rid of clutter. And for any of these, I could easily say, oh, hide that column as well. I clearly messed myself up here because I tried to do something fun on the fly. All right, we're going to forget that. Sorry to my team watching at home. Someone tell me what I did wrong. All right, so we're going to discard those. But if we wanted to redo this, you never try to do things on the fly, team. If we go back, you can make sure that you're actually saving this to a new view because, to be honest, I think my manager Mario doesn't really want me messing up this view that he has very carefully curated to look at for himself. So I can go ahead and save that to a new view and say, this is Allison's view. No one touch it. Cool. All right. So that's our actual board view, which I'm super excited about. Now, if we think about what comes next, each of those items, we're all developers here. Each one of those has dozens, hundreds of engineering tasks to shipping each one of those. Can you imagine if we put all of those issues in one project? That would be overwhelming. So what happens is every single one of those items actually has its own project board. Actually, let me go back 1 second to sort of show you that. So if we go to by area and we say, cool, there's this creating and curating one, you'll notice that we have a project, decision log, a Slack channel, what feature flags we care about. And every single one of these has this form because we're actually using issue templates, which I highly recommend you do to remind your team sort of how you want them to work. So if I was opening up one of these, I would click the Epic tracking issue, and I get the little prompt to say, hey, remember, when you are starting work on one of these, be sure to build a project for that so that you can keep all of your issues collected in one place so that you aren't just building a massive project where there's 6 million different issues for all the engineering tasks. All right. I feel like I'm talking fast, but I'm hyped up. So when we talk about our feature overview, what are our questions, right? Again, it always starts with, who's looking at this? What are the questions we're trying to answer? So for the feature overview, our users are our ICs. It's our product manager. It's our designer. It's our engineering manager. It is the squad working on that feature deliverable. And it contains all the tasks necessary to ship it. The general things we want to answer are things like, what's the work assigned to me? I definitely want to stay on top of that. As an engineering manager, it's probably what is the sequencing of the tasks? What are the broad sets of work that we need to get done? And is work really spread evenly across the team? I personally want to make sure no one's working too hard. So I could to show you another example, but I think it's more fun to show that this actually works in practice. So we are going to build one of these project boards together here. Hopefully that's cool with y'all. So if I go to my demo here, I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new project. Now, we try to help you out here. If you want to start with a template, we've got team backlog and features, which will help you get set up. But I'm going to start completely from scratch so that I can, hopefully convince you that this is the way we do it. I'm going to rename this. We're going to say, what if we're creating an auto add automation? This is something I'm very excited to work on. And if anyone cares about automations, I would love to talk to you after this. So with this in mind, what we're going to do is we're just going to start listing things that we think we need to take care of. So don't judge me for the engineering tasks I'm about to create. My EMs are wonderful and do a lot of that for me. So thank you, everyone. But I'm going to do things like, we know we're going to have documentation. We know we're going to have a social media plan. I know that we're going to need to be able to specify filters across repositories for this. Wouldn't that be nice? We're going to need some performance testing. And for those of you who have ever given demos, you know that typing in front of an audience is probably one of the most times I make typing mistakes. We probably want, some integration testing. And I can just go through really quickly creating draft issues. And then now I can start to think about those questions. And I say, cool, what are like the general sets of work? Like these are very high level, but I know I'm going to want to be able to group by them. So I'm going to create a new field, and I'm going to call it area. And I'm going to make that a single select, because again, I don't want my team saying, okay, this is, documentation, but this one is like documentations and all. Don't let. When in doubt, single select is generally my vibe. So I can do art, so like design. I know that like filtering is going to be a big one. We have testing, we have documentation. There's my spelling error yet again, as well as marketing. And what I love is that you can also do emojis to add a little flair to it, because we know that color makes everything a little easier to scan, or color and symbols rather. And so let's do testing. I'm going to do like a little robot here. If anyone has any good ideas for filtering, shout it out. But otherwise, we're going to start with those two. So we can save that, and then I can quickly just go through and say, cool, this is documentation, this is going to be marketing. And as you'll notice here, I am just using my keyboard because that's my preferred way to do it. It makes me feel really fast and able to just quickly iterate on these things. Now, for area, that's one. We obviously need to do some sort of planning, right? Maybe something with time. That's generally how these things work. So I can do another new field, and I'm going to say iteration. I can do iteration, and we like to work in 1 week segments, so I can create that. Ooh. All right, and then let's see, what other questions did we have here? We said, oh, is work spread equally across the team? Cool, that's probably some sort of effort field. We'll make that a number and save. And so you can see I'm just asking myself these questions. I'm creating fields that I think address them. And I can use these draft issues to start assigning things to make sure that the fields are really functioning in the way that I expect them to, right? Am I getting to a point that makes sense? If we think about planning, I could fill this out in this table view, but I really like it as a board view. So I'm going to say, great, this is going to be my planning view. I'm going to make it a board, and I don't want to group it by status. I want to actually group it by the iteration. And so now I can do things like easily drag from no iteration to the second or third. And If it's going to take more than 3 weeks, as things often do, you can easily hit this plus button here to create the next iteration. So we're really about empowering you to sort of plan and track as these questions are coming up for you. Now, once I agree that this is really an item that I'd like to take on, I can do things like convert to issue. So now this is going to be a fully fledged issue that lives in a repository for my team. And we can start to use our fun task lists here. And I can do the same sort of work where I can just say, great, we're going to need content design. Cool, that. I know folks feel the misspelling pain. So we've got content design. We want to do the review of the content PR. And also, I just want to like sync with Steve on publishing these. So these are all drafts, but I can do the same thing where I'm like, cool, these are things I actually want to work on. So I can convert to an issue, and convert to an issue, and convert to an issue right within the tools and the views that I'm already in. And if I go back and I look at my full view here, I'm like, oh wait, these aren't here yet. So I can go ahead and bulk add them. And I can say, great, each of these 3 issues we're going to add to our board here. And there they are. I can quickly go and say, great, documentation, documentation, documentation. And then I'm like, okay, cool. I'm starting to get those big categories of work. So let's actually group by that. And I'm going to say, great, group by area. Now, the plan's starting to come together, right? It's making its way there. Whew, all right. So many things, so many fun things. So if we go into this, for those of you who, I assume everyone here watched the keynote, remember that you can also just navigate through and actually build task list upon task list upon task list, which I personally love. We'll let you navigate task lists all the way down. So have fun with the graph that you can build there. I have so much content. There's so many fun things here. So from here, sorry, team. I have to mimic this screen, so I do not have my presentation notes and my PowerPoint in front of me. So appreciate your patience as I'm shifting through my physical notes. So once we go through here, one thing I also want to point out is that projects is great, but issues on its own is going to help you along your journey. As you do things like open in a new tab, you can go ahead and create a branch super easily. You can create that. If I actually navigate to that branch, I can now make changes, do a quick PR. We'll use github.dev because we love that. If you haven't seen that before, you just press the dot button and it'll open the github.dev experience if you like VS Code like I do. We can update this README to say, hello universe, go back, commit these changes. Got to make sure it's spelled right for the commit message. Those are eternal. And then if we go back to the repository, cancel, got that. All right, now we're going to go back to the repo. Yes, open it. Then create and compare our pull request. We really just push you along your journey. And what I love is that when I go back to any of these views, I can now say, all right, let's talk about status. We're going to do these by board. We're going to group these by status as they already are. And what's even better is I'm going to make sure that we can easily see the linked pull request view. So if I add that, you'll see that now as my team comes to this board, if I see something is in a new column called ready for review, I can actually just easily click that PR right from here in order to help out my teammates. All right, the last thing I'm going to show here is that we really wanted to build things that were flexible depending on who's looking at the board. I think if you think about other experiences, if I wanted to be able to make a view of all the items assigned to me, I'd have to do assignee at 2% silk. And if my friend or coworker Steve wanted a view for him, he'd have to do assignee at Steve. But here with projects, we can actually use the token at me, and we could even do things like iteration at current. And this will always update depending on who's looking at this view as we move through time. So now I've got one view that every single person on my team can come and look at and see the work that's planned for them for that iteration. And I really, really love that personally. It's one of my favorite features. So clearly, we've got a lot of work to do on auto add, but I don't think I'm going to get this feature done in the next 4 minutes here. So we'll save this project board and continue onward when I get back to Seattle. But as you can see, it really goes back to what are the questions you need answered. And every single question can either be answered with a custom view or some sort of custom field that you can create. There's a demo. And one thing I truly love is I'm on the go. I've been traveling all week to be here with y'all. And sometimes I need to be able to update my status on the go. So we have project support on GitHub Mobile for both Android and iOS in a beta now. You can sign up, you'll get in, it's great. I would certainly try it out. And here I have my quick demo because showing my phone wouldn't be fun here for y'all. But you can see I can quickly update things like my priority, I can update size on the go, and I can even like flip through the different views that are already in my project. So this will allow you to, maybe when you're stuck at a long line in a grocery store, take care of those little tasks of making sure your team knows what you're working on and where certain work items are in the process. Now, I've said this a bunch of times now, but if you take anything away as you go on your project's journey, remember to just ask yourself those 2 main questions. Who's looking at this board, looking at this project, and what are the things they need to know? What are the questions they have that you can build? And when in doubt, just try it. Projects is meant to be flexible, so you can constantly update it on the go. And if you're finding it hard to update on the go, come talk to us, because that's not what we want. So be sure to sign up for some of our betas. We've got Roadmap, Taskless, and Mobile. The first 2, Roadmap and Taskless, are a private beta, so can't guarantee you'll get in automatically. But with Mobile, that one is nice and public, so you can try that today. And if you want to spend more time with me where I am just asking you tons of questions about your experience, be sure to sign up for GitHub's customer research panel. You can find the shortly here. And if you want one of those really snazzy Octocat signs, I really want one. I don't have one yet. I got to figure out how to sign up for this panel because I use GitHub. I'm a customer, right? You'll have a chance to win one of those. This is an awesome way to engage with the product teams. We love talking with folks, and it's a really targeted way to get us feedback about the things we're shipping out. So with that and the last 90 seconds here for any questions, I just want to say thank you. I know it went very fast, right? I want to say thanks to you all and good luck on your project's journey. Hopefully this helped you feel a bit more secure in trying out projects if you haven't already. And I hope everyone learned something today. So thanks for all joining me over lunch. And I will be around if you'd like to chat.